Chapter 1. The Big Break. Oliver had been dreaming of this moment for years. The moment when his band, the Wild Ones, would finally get their big break. They had been playing together since high school, jamming in garages and playing small gigs at local bars and cafes. But tonight was different. They had landed a gig at the hottest music venue in town, and the crowd was buzzing with excitement. As Oliver strapped on his guitar and took his place on stage, he felt a surge of adrenaline. The lights were blinding, the amplifiers were buzzing, and the crowd was cheering. He looked over at his bandmates, Jack on drums and Beth on bass, and they exchanged a nervous smile. This was it. This was the moment they had been waiting for. The band launched into their first song, and Oliver felt himself slip into a trance. His fingers flew over the strings, and he lost himself in the music. The crowd was loving it, swaying to the beat and singing along. Everything felt perfect. But as they moved into their second song, Oliver started to feel a tightness in his chest. He tried to ignore it, focusing on the music, but it only got worse. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain shoot through his arm, and his fingers went numb. He tried to keep playing, but his hand wouldn't move. With a final, discordant note, Oliver collapsed on stage, clutching his chest. The crowd went silent, and Jack and Beth rushed to his side. They knew something was seriously wrong. As they carried him out of the venue and into the ambulance, Oliver's mind raced. What had happened? Had he suffered a heart attack? Would he ever be able to play guitar again? The hospital was a blur of doctors and nurses, poking and prodding at him, running tests and taking x-rays. Oliver felt like he was in a nightmare. This couldn't be happening, not when they were so close to making it big. As the hours stretched on, Oliver's bandmates waited anxiously outside his hospital room. They didn't know what to do. The Wild Ones were Oliver's dream, but they were also their own. Could they continue without him? Should they? Finally, a doctor emerged from Oliver's room looking grim. "He's stable," she said, "but he's had a serious heart attack. He'll need to rest and recover for a while, and I'm afraid he won't be able to play guitar for a long time, if ever." Jack and Beth were stunned. How could this be happening? What would they do without Oliver's guitar skills? But they knew they couldn't give up on their friend. They would do whatever it took to help him recover, even if it meant putting their dreams on hold. As they settled into chairs outside Oliver's room, Jack strummed a few chords on his drumsticks, and Beth started humming a melody. They may not have known what the future held, but they knew one thing for sure. They were in this together no matter what. Chapter 2. The Road to Recovery. The days in the hospital blurred together for Oliver. He was in a haze of painkillers and anxiety, and everything felt unreal. He knew he had to focus on his recovery, but the thought of never playing guitar again made him feel like he was losing a part of himself. As he lay in his hospital bed, his bandmates came to visit every day. They brought him books, flowers, and their own instruments. Jack and Beth played gentle melodies, trying to lift Oliver's spirits, but it only made him feel more hopeless. How could he ever join them on stage again? The doctor had told him that he needed to rest and avoid stress, which meant no music for a while. But Oliver couldn't stand the thought of giving up his passion. He needed to find a way to keep playing, even if it was just for himself. So he started to experiment with new ways of playing. He picked up a keyboard and started playing around with chords and melodies. It wasn't the same as his guitar, but it was something. It gave him a sense of purpose and helped him focus on something other than his illness. As the days turned into weeks, Oliver started to make progress. His heart was healing, and he was slowly regaining his strength. He started going for walks around the hospital, pushing himself a little further each time. And when he wasn't walking, he was playing his keyboard, letting the music fill his room. One day, Jack and Beth came to visit, and Oliver showed them what he had been working on. He played a simple melody on his keyboard, and to his surprise, Jack started tapping out a beat on his drumsticks. Beth joined in with a bass line, and before they knew it, they were playing together again. It wasn't the same as playing with his guitar, but it was still music, and it felt good to be playing with his bandmates again, even if it was just a simple jam session. They knew they had a long road ahead of them, but they were in it together. As Oliver continued to recover, he started to think about the future of the Wild Ones. Would they still be able to make it big without his guitar skills? Could they find a way to adapt to his new limitations? He didn't know the answer yet, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't ready to give up on his dream. He had come too far to let it all slip away. He would find a way to keep playing, no matter what. And with his bandmates by his side, he knew anything was possible. Chapter 3. Back on stage. Months had passed since Oliver's accident, and the band had been practicing tirelessly, adapting their music to accommodate Oliver's new limitations. It was a challenge, but they were determined to make it work. They had a few small gigs lined up at local bars and were excited to get back on stage. As they arrived at the venue, Oliver couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and nervousness. It had been so long since he had performed in front of a crowd, and he wasn't sure how it would go. He took a deep breath and reminded himself that he had his bandmates by his side. As they took to the stage, the crowd cheered and clapped. Oliver's heart raced as he started to play his keyboard. It was different than his guitar, but he was determined to make it work. The first few songs went well, and the crowd seemed to be enjoying the music. But then, during one of the songs, Oliver's keyboard suddenly stopped working. He looked up at his bandmates, panic rising in his chest. They didn't miss a beat, and Jack quickly took over with a drum solo, while Beth worked to fix the keyboard. After a few moments, the keyboard started working again, and Oliver rejoined the song. It wasn't perfect, but they managed to finish the set. As they took their final bow, the crowd erupted in applause. Oliver felt a sense of relief wash over him. He had been so afraid of letting his bandmates down, but they had managed to pull through the setback together. He knew they still had a long way to go, but he felt more hopeful than ever. Over the next few months, the Wild Ones continued to perform at small gigs and festivals, and their popularity began to grow. Oliver continued to experiment with different instruments, trying to find new ways to express himself through music. One day, as they were packing up after a show, a man approached them. He introduced himself as a record producer and said he had been impressed by their performance. He wanted to offer them a record deal. Oliver couldn't believe it. They had dreamed of this moment for years, and now it was finally happening. He felt a sense of gratitude for his bandmates and the journey they had been on together. They had overcome so much, and he knew they were stronger for it. As they signed the contract, Oliver thought back to the accident that had almost destroyed everything. It had been a setback, but it had also been a turning point. It had forced them to adapt and grow as musicians, and it had brought them closer together as a band. He knew that their journey was far from over, but he felt confident that they were ready for whatever lay ahead. And as they left the studio, ready to begin recording their first album, he knew that anything was possible with his bandmates by his side.